at the Project 43 Team Post Center, 68 Los Angeles. For more information, contact Black Panther Party Breakfast at gmail.com or call 707-554-2784. That's Black Panther Party Breakfast at gmail.com or call 707-554-2784. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting. A movement of people, it's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing life to the poor where the princess is. I was so good like this where forgiveness lives.
You are listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Happy President's Day, everybody. And for all of our leaders, learners, and listeners right here in the City of Angels, happy MLK Day, MLK Day Parade, that is. For those of you that are less familiar, because of the LA wildfires, the typical Martin Luther King Day Parade was postponed. It was postponed until today. And so it was great to come in to the building and outside, see so many beautiful Black people, so many beautiful Angelinos out there together commemorating the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. I'm in touch, and so you be in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, that's DRNIIQ, and there I am, fresh for you to follow on Instagram, on TikTok, on all the things. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580, and there we are, fresh for you to follow. It is a very special honor to be your host and White House correspondent. And with that, it's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, y'all remember Ralph Yarl, the young Black man who was shot by an old white man over in Kansas? Well, Ralph Yarl's family is speaking out. They are speaking out, and they said that race played a factor in the shooting after the suspect pled guilty to second-degree assault. That's right, you heard it right. Not second-degree murder, second-degree assault. ABC News is reporting that Andrew Lester, the Kansas City man charged with shooting Ralph Yarl in April 2023 after the teenager knocked on the door of the wrong house. He pleaded guilty to second-degree assault charges in a 10-minute Missouri court hearing on Friday. The 86-year-old man, who had been facing charges of first-degree assault and armed criminal action in the shooting of the 16-year-old Yarl, who was a Black honor student who mistakenly showed up at Lester's door to pick up his twin brothers. Now, second-degree assault, in case you're wondering, as I was, is a Class D felony. It carries with it the sentencing possibility, operative word possibility, of up to 7 years in prison. That's according to Clay County Prosecutor Zach Thompson. That's what he said at a press conference just this past Friday. The sentencing hearing will happen on March 7th, according to Thompson. I don't know about you, but still second-degree assault for shooting a young kid in the head and in the arm just doesn't fit the crime. It just doesn't fit the crime to me. Does it fit the crime to you? If it whether it does or doesn't, sound off in our More Perfect group chat for those of you that are streaming on YouTube, or call in and tell us what you think. You can always call in right here at KBLA. Just dial 1-800-920-1580. That's 1-800-920 1580 to sound off on what you think about Ralph Yarl's perpetrator pleading guilty to second-degree assault. Moving along, in other news, Linda McMahon, Trump's nominee in education for education secretary. Well, guess what? She's not quite certain whether African-American studies would be allowed under Trump's executive order. You cannot make this stuff up. The Chronicle of Higher Education is reporting that President Trump's nominee for education secretary danced around the specifics of a much debated plan to shutter the education department during her U.S. Senate confirmation hearing last Thursday. Linda McMahon, who's a pro wrestling magnate and Trump ally who led the Small Business Administration during his first term, seemed to have had it both ways, saying in one moment that she'd investigate and even consider pulling funding from colleges for alleged discrimination, and in others that she'd shrink the bureaucracy that handles cases. Apparently, that means possibly doing away with African American studies. And talking about doing away with stuff, a woman drops a suit accusing Sean Diddy Combs and Jay-Z of raping her when she was 13. Remember this story? It got a lot of attention. It's important to point out that the charges have been dropped. The woman who accused Jay-Z and Sean Diddy Combs of raping her when she was just 13 years old has dropped her lawsuit against both men. Court records show that a notice of voluntary dismissal against all defendants was submitted on Friday. It was dismissed with prejudice, meaning the plaintiff cannot refile a suit. It comes less than 4 months after the suit was initially filed. The suit included disturbing details of how the woman was allegedly lured by a limousine driver outside the 2000 MTV Video Music Awards and assaulted by the two rappers at an after party. Jay-Z has strongly denied the claims, and his attorneys have been seeking to get the case dismissed. In a statement on Saturday, Carter said the claims were frivolous, fictitious, and appalling, and called the suit a money grab. He went on to say that I would not wish this experience on anyone. The trauma that my wife, my children, and my loved ones and I have endured can never be dismissed. When we come forward, we are welcoming Yemi Adegbonmire, an entertainment attorney, as well as Cameron Johnson, NAACP Image Award winning writer-producer, to talk about a conversation that they're about to have today, later this evening, at the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival right here in Los Angeles, about the state of Black and queer folks in Hollywood. They're going to preview what they're about to share when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Can your pad absorb everything and stay fresh? Always Radiant with Flex Foam can. Get up to 0 leaks, 0 odor, and 0 feel. Because Flex Foam is the only pad with a flexible foam core. You heard me, foam. Always Radiant is so thin, it feels like nothing, yet protects like nothing else. Can your pad do that? For up to 100% leak-free protection, try Always Radiant to see what Flex Foam can do for you.
Want to play a game with me and Dad?
Mommy's not feeling good.
You need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with Dayquil VapoCool. It's Dayquil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
Come on, honey. Let's let mommy rest.
You guys are amazing. And so is Dayquil VapoCool.
Dayquil VapoCool, the vaporizing daytime coughing, aching, fever, power through your day medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hit me! National News: The Consequence. Informed opinion. And analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and you know how we are big fans of arts and culture. And while we talk a lot about leaders on the front lines in Washington, D.C. and in states across the country, it's important to also elevate the voices of folks who are shaping our culture in the entertainment industry. And in that spirit, I'm really excited to welcome Yemi Adegbonmire. She is an entertainment attorney. and she is a part of this dynamic panel that is going to be hitting the stage today at the Pan-African Films and Art Festival. She'll, of course, be hitting the stage along with Cameron Johnson, who is not just Cameron Johnson, he is NAACP Image Award winning Cameron Johnson. He is also executive producer and co-creator of Tom Swift, and has his hands in a lot of projects as a writer-producer. Welcome to the show to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so, Yemi, kick us off. This panel today at the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival is entitled No Filter, No Apology, Black and Queer in Hollywood. What is the state of affairs for Black and queer people in Hollywood?
Well, I guess when I think about that, I would say that we are more alike than we're unalike. And so I don't know that our state is different than any other artist or champion of artists working in Hollywood right now, right? Our focus is on really telling great stories, identifying an audience that wants to hear that great story, and delivering, finding great talent that can do it. I think, you know, so much of the reason why I work in the arts and why I love the arts is because it's just relatable. And I think that part of what, you know, separates us is, you know, sort of dividing ourselves into different segments. And there are so many folks that have grown up in families where their parents may have been queer, their cousins, they're queer. The stories are so universal. And so when I think about the state of the queer voice in Hollywood, it is the voice and all of our voices in Hollywood because it's in all of our families. You know, we're everywhere.
And Cameron, speaking of being everywhere, I mean, you know, look, you are a writer, producer. You're on, you know, sort of, you know, the other side of the house as a creator. Mm-hmm. You're creating characters on the page that people go out to play. Talk to us about the pressure that you and some of your colleagues might feel in this moment when it comes to bringing the fullness of anyone's identity to the page, let alone the screen.
It's interesting. You know, a story I always tell is, in terms of that pressure, is so when I was doing Tom Swift, which is the show I co-created for the CW, it's actually the first and only network TV show about the life of a Black gay man, or with a Black gay male lead. So with that said, as we were doing that, I remember we did our focus group testing. And there was this lovely Black woman who was like, oh my God, I love this show. It's so funny. I love that we get to see Black people be brilliant and engineers and making space things and, you know, making spaceships and stuff. But that scene where those two guys kissed turned to my stomach and I almost threw up. And so I think the pressure that I feel as an artist, as a creator, is how do I tell stories about queer people when I know that the primary audience for them is not other queer people. It's the rest of the world. And so what is the balance that you can find between wanting to tell a story that is authentic and also wanting to tell a story that like is going to be subjected to other people's sort of projected homophobia? And I think, yeah, it's challenging.
And Yemi, speaking of people's projected homophobia, we know, for example, that there are a lot of companies that right now are feeling pressure to walk away from their commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a more hostile federal government where the Department of Justice, for example, has said they're going after companies that are doing DEI work. Talk to us, you know, as someone who is familiar with the challenges that the general counsels are having to navigate on behalf of their clients. Talk to us about how this environment is trickier than what meets the eye, even for, you know, the big Hollywood studios and production companies.
Yeah. You know, I think about it like this. You know, if you were to slip on grass, it would get onto your clothes. And at some point, you're going to have to find a laundry detergent that works, that gets that stain out, right? At the end of the day, we are still consumers. We are folks that, earn money, have dollars. We are part of the consumer base. And, it's difficult to navigate this because you don't want to increase your litigation risk as a GC. But at the same time, you still do have consumers that you need to speak to. And I think, sort of any good GC will really figure out how to get to those consumers. And so you may decide to change the commercial that you do, but you could spend with Black-owned media. You could spend your dollars in places where your consumers are. And so I think this is a, where are your great products? Are your great products getting to the folks that want to consume them moment? And what folks are seeing now, particularly around the boycott, there are brands I didn't even know were Black owned, but because of this boycott that's coming up from Target, I didn't even know Honey Pot was Black owned, right? Mm-hmm. So there are, and I just love the brand just because I love the brand. And so I think that one of the things, and it's sort of no endorsement of a particular thing, but one of the big things is that you have to have a great product and you have to have a great story. And if you sit there, then you can create ads, you can connect with your buyers or your consumers from that space directly. And that is not something that's actually going to be something that will fall or put you in a litigation risk at the end of the day, because you really are selling soap to the folks that want to get the grass out of their knee on their pants.
Procter & Gamble, if you're listening, I'm not calling anybody out, but I'm just saying that was a really great analogy. Thank you very much. Cameron, I want to shift gears a little bit. You're not only a writer producer, but you're also an activist. I mean, and I have been, I bear witness to your activism, whether we're talking about the writer strike or we're talking about, said campaign for president, or said issue on the California ballot. You're out there and you practice your activism with your pen and your voice. And, I've got to get your take on President Trump really cleaning house at the Kennedy Center and installing new board members, and he himself becoming chair of the Kennedy Center. Some of the folks who resign include people like Shonda Rhimes, writer and creator of Grey's Anatomy, folks like Karine Jean-Pierre, the former White House press secretary, folks like Issa Rae. What was your reaction to that very unprecedented decision by President Trump?
I mean, I found it disgusting, which is what I find most of his actions to be. But I think what's interesting about the way that the Trumps behave and the way that their people behave is that because they cannot actually create good art, there's no incredible, oh my God, everybody's got to come see him conservative, like movie director. There's no like, oh my God, that Tim Allen, like there's nobody that can make that can reach the heights that is from their side, that can reach sort of the heights of the creative fields. So what they do instead is he goes and he kicks out everyone the tastemakers. He says, well, now I'm the tastemaker. Now I'm right. Everybody's going to eat cold McDonald's and, wear bad suits. And so what I think happens is this: art in and of itself as people is always going to be political. It's always going to be a form of activism. It always makes a statement, even art that's done for commerce. And what they are, despite the fact that they have he's taken over the Kennedy Center and now he will give himself the honors and will be honoring, I don't know, Kid Rock or something. They can't actually make their work good. There's nothing that he can do to make sort of the art that he wants to be the most important in our world, the best of the best art. So with that said, I found it pretty gross. And I have mad respect for Shonda and Issa. You know, Issa is a real one. Like, she is a person who walks the walk, lives in her beliefs, and, you know, isn't going to just do something for a check. So I applaud those people who are in positions of power for exiting those positions in order to, you know, stand up for what they believe in. Because it is only when we refuse to compromise our work that we actually can make statements with.
Talk to us about, I want to give you a chance to add on to that, but also, talk to us about what it means for this cultural institution of the Kennedy Center being taken over by the sitting president, and him having cleaned up shop at the Kennedy Center. What does that mean, not just for the arts, but what does that mean for the industry? Do you expect industry leaders to continue to really kowtow to Trump, to attempt to curry favor with him in ways that we hadn't seen before?
Well, and this is actually the perfect segue, because when it is your show, you control the show. And so when Issa stepped back, she said, I'll be refunding the tickets, because the thing that folks were coming to was a production that she was running. And so at the end of the day, right, like, the folks that wanted to come see that can't see it there. They may be able to see it in another space or time. But ultimately, she is directly connected to the audience, right? And that's really powerful. We have to get into a position of ownership, and where access isn't, relegated to a third party. She had direct access to the folks that wanted to come and experience the artistry and celebrate the excellence there. And when it wasn't going to fly right, it was going to be too crooked, she said, don't worry about it. Stay home. Let me give you your money back. You're all set. That's powerful. And we have to be in that.
I wholly agree. And that is, I think, globally, in terms of like the institutions that we're talking about, but all, like the Kennedy Center, but also as you talk about like DEI as a concept, and like whether companies are going to like march towards it or march away from it, we're never gonna, Black people have to own the means of production. Like, we have to own our audiences. We have to own the way we communicate with those audiences. And if we don't, we're always going to be subjected to the vicissitudes of the political system as the pendulum of America goes back and forth and back and forth. So 5 years ago, it was like, oh my God, yay, everything Black. Now it's like, oh no, we can't do that anymore. No more Black people. That only affects you if you don't own it. And Issa, Shonda, those people who are parts of the Kennedy Center or were participating in Kennedy Center events, own their stuff, and they can't. And as a consequence, like, they don't have to be subjected to that irritation.
Yeah. I think it was Denzel Washington who said that you got to do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do. And sort of bringing this back to your panel, which will be at 5 p.m. Pacific time today. At the Culver Theater in Culver City, California. This is the 33rd annual Pan-African Film and Arts Festival. The panel entitled No Filter, No Apology, Black and Queer in Hollywood. Just sort of bringing it back to that, and the idea of you have to do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do. There are a lot of folks that, aren't Issa Rae status yet, right? And so short of the folks that aren't Issa's yet, that aren't Shonda's yet, right? That may not, control their content the way that they would like. What general advice would you offer to content creators in this environment that may find themselves, for example, working with brands, that say, wait a minute, we like you, but that content is a little too risky. Or, hey, can you tone down the Black? Can you tone down the, the queer? What advice, what guidance would you offer them? Yemi?
No, go ahead, Cameron. I'm looking at you first, because we may split here, but I'll be curious.
Go ahead.
My advice in that situation is always just to know where your red lines are. I worked on my very first TV show that I wrote on. There was a gay character, and it was very clear that I had been hired to write about the gay character. And I knew that, and I was like, and before I went in that room, I was like, okay, cool. So what I'm going to try to do is make this into a real human being, and I'm not going to allow them to demean this guy, and I'm not going to allow them to, hurl slurs at him or in whatever. The rest of it, it was a sitcom. It was supposed to be funny. So we made fun of his life and we made fun of him. But those were where my red lines were. And there came a day when the red line came up. One of them wanted to call him a light version of a slur, like as part of the joke. And I said, we're not doing that. And I'm a little staff writer. It's my first job. I'm all scared. But the thing we have to do, what I realized is that, like, if I don't stand up for this, no one else will. And someone else might watch it and see it and think that it's okay to let someone speak to them that way. So as long as you know where your lines are, what you are and are not willing to do, then if you can go into any situation, whether these people want you or not, and leave it with your integrity intact.
Yemi?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I would say if, we live in a country where America can make an Archie Bunker relatable. And so, put your pen to the paper and get to work. Like we already have an example of the fact that you can sort of connect to audiences in ways that are uncomfortable and are present. And queer character is not the same as Archie Bunker, but I'm just making the point that you can really sort of get to where the character is and tell that story directly. And America will accept that, and we will sit directly with it. And I just think that we can't be afraid of that. And I, sort of applaud Cameron for saying this is the line. Like this, we want to be in the joke, but not the joke. We want to be
not the
in
joke.
Yeah, that's right.
One last thing in our remaining minute with you, I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. We know the NAACP Image Awards is coming up this weekend. The NAACP announced that Dave Chappelle will be receiving the President's Award. We know that Dave Chappelle's comedy has been at odds with the trans community and the politics of a lot of folks in the LGBTQ communities and allies. Any reaction to the NAACP awarding Dave Chappelle with that President's Award?
I think the most important reason why they shouldn't be giving him that award is because his last two specials have not been funny. That's the real problem with his work. But I mean, it's pretty gross, and it feels like a betrayal of the people who make so much of the art. I mean, if you had many queer people on that stage, many queer people who do the work of making that show possible and of making all of the art that Black people consume possible, and you have a person who essentially equates gayness with whiteness in his own words and has gone out of his way to punch down at a community that really has no problem with him. So I'm not excited. I'm disappointed in the NAACP, and like Effie White, I'm telling you, I'm not going.
We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to Yemi Adegbonmire, celebrated and award-winning entertainment attorney, as well as NAACP Image Award-winning Cameron Johnson, writer-producer Cameron Johnson. It hits differently when somebody's actually won an NAACP Image Award and say that they are not pleased with Dave Chappelle being honored with the President's Award in light of some of the critique around his politics and the trans and LGBTQ community more broadly. My thanks to both of you. Be sure to go out and check them out at the Pan-African Film and Arts Festival. Again, their panel is today, February 17th at 5 p.m. at the Culver Theater in Culver City, California. The panel is entitled No Filter, No Apology, Black and Queer in Hollywood. And they ain't playing around. Thanks to you. You've been listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered about issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, you've tuned into the right place. A More Perfect Union continues when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. A Delta flight from Minneapolis has crashed while landing in snowy Toronto. All passengers and crew are accounted for, with at least 8 injured. Social media images show the plane upside down as passengers walk away. Sacred Heart University in Connecticut is losing a $3 million federal grant over its DEI policies, which funded 80 teaching jobs. The school has 30 days to appeal or find new funding, or the program may shut down. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, a GOP critic of Governor Newsom, has announced his run for California governor. He claims a Kamala Harris candidacy would boost his chances, vowing to end California's, quote, insanity, end quote. And a Fort Smith, Arkansas teacher is blaming artificial intelligence for inserting a racial slur in a test question. Robert Taylor says he used a district-approved program for a quiz on Warriors Don't Cry and kept the word for context. He denies racism but is now on leave. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
In Encino, the 101 southbound past Balboa, a car flipped over. It's been blocking the right lane. That drive is slow moving all the way out of Agora Hills, leaving Liberty Canyon Road. Also, it's a tough drive in Corona. This is a wreck on the 15 southbound before Wyrick Road. They're clearing it out of the 2 middle lanes. Delays leaving the 91 freeway. It's really tough in the Cajon Pass. On the northbound side of the 15, delays from Glen Helen Parkway to the 138. And southbound slowing out of Hesperia, leaving the 395 back to Cleghorn.
If you or someone you know is affected by the Los Angeles wildfires, you are not alone. No matter how sad, scared, or heartbroken you feel, Cal Hope is here for you and all those affected by the devastating wildfires. Find free, safe, and confidential mental health support at calhope.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
For the first time in 12 weeks, UCLA does not have the nation's #1 women's college basketball team. Notre Dame is the new #1 in this week's Associated Press Top 25 poll. It was a fabulous run for UCLA, which started the season 23-0. The Bruins lost to USC Thursday night. The rest of the top 5, #2 Texas, UCLA drops to 3rd, USC moves up to 4th, and UConn moves up to 5th. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said the league will continue sponsoring the HBCU Classic during All-Star Weekend. Tuskegee beat Morehouse 68-55 in Saturday's Classic in San Francisco. This was the 4th year the NBA has featured the HBCU Classic on All-Star Saturday. The NBA covers all expenses for the 2 schools, the players, staff, cheerleaders, and the band. Next year's NBA All-Star Weekend will be at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah,
gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice. justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and really delighted to welcome back to the show. I think this is your first time back with us in our afternoon drive time.
I think so, absolutely.
Yes, I'm talking about our friend Terrence J. Evans. He is the new chair of the California Lawyers Association. He's also director of Region 9 of the National Bar Association. Did I get that right?
Correct, absolutely.
And you know, he is on brand because he is in community. That's how he rolls. And you know, it's been really great to see from DC, seeing you and so many other Black lawyers, you know, rolling up your sleeves and supporting folks on the ground who've been negatively impacted by the LA wildfires, particularly folks in the community of Altadena. In fact, you have a California Association of Black Lawyers Know Your Rights event that's coming up. It's intended to aid those affected by the LA fires with legal and insurance advice. Tell us when you came up with the idea to do this and what kind of response you're getting thus far.
Absolutely. So during the Martin Luther King weekend, we put together 4 in-person legal clinics that were hosted at different churches throughout LA County, and this was in partnership with the John M. Langston Bar Association, California Association of Black Lawyers, and Black Women Lawyers of Los Angeles, along with Region 9 of National Bar Association. And we were on the ground helping folks, but then we realized that we needed to provide help to people who may not be able to attend in person. So we have assembled experts in insurance, in FEMA, in banking, and property tax from around the state so that people can interact virtually. The program will be recorded. People will be able to ask questions in real time. And this information will hopefully guide people through the complex process of trying to rebuild their lives.
And again, the California Association of Black Lawyers are presenting Know Your Rights. It's a panel to aid those affected by the LA fires with legal and insurance advice. It's taking place on February 19th. And again, everyone can join via Zoom. It's from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time.
Correct.
And so if you're traveling for whatever reason, because we know there are some people that needed a little bit of a break, and so they may have traveled out of state to visit family and friends, you can join virtually. And where can people go to get that Zoom link?
Sure. So if they Google California Association of Black Lawyers, they'll go to the cable website, and there will be a link there so that folks can join and participate.
I mean, what's so great about this is you brought together some pretty dynamic organizations with a lot of credibility on the ground. You already mentioned the John Langston Bar Association of Los Angeles, but, you know, Black Women Lawyers, 100 Black Men, the California Association of Black Lawyers, of course, and National Bar Association, as well as California Lawyers Association. You know, there's so many folks that have found themselves almost in a state of paralysis.
Sure.
Overwhelmed.
Right.
By the work that is ahead. Talk to us about how you all were able to so quickly come together and overcome that sense of paralysis, that sense of overwhelm that so many folks are still gripped with.
Absolutely. So one of the benefits of being a part of these incredible legacy organizations such as California Association of Black Lawyers, which is the umbrella organization for all black bar associations in California, is that you have a network of professionals who are out there in the field trying to help. And so we really put together all of this talent in partnership with the California Lawyers Association so we could bring the best and brightest people to answer important questions. So, for example, letting people know that they can, for example, request a forbearance on their mortgage while they're negotiating with their insurance company, while they're trying to get temporary housing, so that their home, their property, their land doesn't go into foreclosure while they're still trying to work out those details.
That's a very important point. And I first learned this shortly after I came back to LA. I attended a Pasadena community town hall. And I didn't know this, that folks are expected to still continue to pay on their mortgages while they are having to rent some alternative housing, right? And so there are a number of families that can only go so long, if at all, being able to do that. And so your tips around activating forbearance really could make the difference between whether folks, sort of get through the remainder of this year,
absolutely,
for example, or not.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to that, being able to get an abatement of some of their property taxes so that it can reduce the financial burden while they're trying to ride out the storm. The reality is that for many of the families, it could take years before they're able to rebuild their homes, and we don't want to lose that black wealth, lose those properties for people throughout the country, people throughout California. This is so incredibly important.
What are some of the other frequently asked questions that you and your colleagues are hearing?
Sure. So questions about what do they need to disclose to their insurance company about their loss? How do they negotiate? How do they navigate the adjustment process? So we're going to have one of the leading experts in California insurance claims is going to be part of the panel. We're also going to have a property adjuster who's going to be there. And by the way, that insurance expert is David Gauntlet. He's one of the leading insurance coverage experts. We're going to have a property insurance adjuster, Joshua Patterson, will be there. We'll also have folks there who will talk about the FEMA process. Elizabeth Blair worked in FEMA as a lawyer for 4 years. She'll be able to explain that process. We'll also talk about some of the broader legal avenues that are available to the victims of the LA wildfires.
How optimistic are you that everyone who wants to return to the place that they've called home, in some cases they've called this home for decades, how optimistic are you in light of some of the hurdles around insurance, some of the hurdles around environmental cleanup, making sure that that soil is safe for them to rebuild? How optimistic are you that more people than not will be able to return to their home?
Well, I think the more information people have, the more empowered they'll be able to return to their home if they navigate this process in the most effective way. The wild card, however, is the new administration, which has placed restrictions on FEMA, which has placed restrictions on small business administration loans that will make it more challenging for people to be able to navigate. But we will provide the information that folks need so they'll at least have the tools to navigate this process as effectively as possible.
And speaking of navigating the process, there are lots of opinions around how local, state, and national leaders have responded to the LA wildfires. What more would you like to see from elected leaders in the region and the new administration in order to really eliminate the red tape? Because people say that they're doing it, right? But folks don't always feel the effect of that, certainly not in real time. What more would you like to see our elected leaders doing so that it's a real possibility for people to actually return home?
Absolutely. So I would like to see more information getting to the people who need it. I would like to see a relaxing. We've already seen some of that for some of the permitting requirements. And then at least on the national level, I would like to hear less partisanship and more focus on the victims so that they can get the resources that they need. People shouldn't be restricted in resources based on who they voted for in the last election.
They shouldn't.
Right.
They shouldn't. How do you see this sort of shaping the race for Los Angeles mayor in 2026? How do you see this shaping the race for governor in 2026. Just today, we saw the Riverside County Sheriff throw his hat in the ring and declare he's running for California governor, a longtime Trump supporter. How do you see the LA wildfires animating these races?
I think there's a chance, and we're already seeing it, that this will get politicized. People will look at how responsive the local government is, and that might influence who they decide to vote for in the election. But I think the more immediate need is trying to pair the victims with resources and information, because a lot of this is time sensitive. Some of the claims that they will need to submit and who they need to submit them to, there are deadlines. And at least in the immediate future, we want to make sure that people make those deadlines and don't miss out on relief because they were too late.
When we come forward, ProPublica is reporting on how Trump's federal funding and hiring freezes are leaving America vulnerable to catastrophic wildfires. It's not just Los Angeles,
sure,
but there are so many of our fellow Americans across the country that are being put at more risk because of this. In addition, there was an executive order that came down that will severely impact public education in this country. I know that you have done a lot of work. Your firm has done a lot of work in this area. We want to get your hot take on that and more. When we come forward, more with Terrence J. Evans, the chair of the California Lawyers Association, also director of Region 9 for the National Bar Association. More when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
The first time I tried to quit vaping, I told myself that it was like a mountain that I had to climb over. And once I got to the other side, it would be clear. But I couldn't make it over. What really got me to quit was my little sister. I saw her vaping. So I was back in the mountain, but this time, she was up there with me. It's weird what you can do for others that you won't do for yourself.
Every attempt is part of your story to quit for good. Visit Kick It California today at kickitca.org.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down, get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte. He is Terrence J. Evans. He's the chair of the California Lawyers Association, also director of Region 9 of the National Bar Association. Terrence, before we went to break, I was mentioning that Trump and the administration, not even a month in, a lot of funny business related to these EOs. The funding freeze is continuing to have a negative impact on folks that rely on government services at home and abroad. No different from those who are relying on the federal government, their services related to the wildfires. Talk to us about how you're experiencing this funding freeze, create an obstacle for victims of the LA wildfires that are just trying to pick up the pieces from the ashes.
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, the process of providing relief to the victims of the LA wildfires, we've seen it politicized with the new administration. Something that really should focus on getting people to rebuild their lives as quickly as possible has in many cases been delayed because of partisanship. And so what we're hoping is that we'll be able to find ways to cut through the red tape and pair people with the information they need to rebuild their lives as quickly as possible and put pressure on the administration to really back off some of this partisanship.
And for folks who are less familiar, ProPublica recently reported that the administration has frozen funds, including money appropriated by Congress, and issued a deluge of orders eliminating federal employees, which has thrown agencies tasked with battling blazes into disarray as individual offices and managers struggle to interpret these directives. The uncertainty has limited training and postponed work to reduce flammable vegetation in areas vulnerable to wildfires. It's also left some firefighters with little choice but to leave the force, according to some of their colleagues. And so it's important that we say the quiet part out loud. Absolutely. So that our fellow Americans, no matter who you voted for, so you're clear about what's happening. You can't just show up and do a big press conference and offer tough talk, to elected officials on the ground, right? And say you're doing everything you can do from the perch of the presidency, when in fact there are directives that you're giving, there are executive orders that you are signing that are actually making the rebuild effort more difficult.
Absolutely. Natural disasters are not partisan events, and the relief that should be available to help victims rebuild their lives also should not be partisan. And we have seen with this administration really efforts to slow down the relief process based on partisanship. And what we're hoping to do is to cut through some of that and make sure that people get the information that they need, direct them to the resources that will help them get their lives on track and preserve their wealth, which is absolutely important here in this crisis.
You said something to me during the break, and I want to make sure that our leaders, learners, and listeners understand how we have an opportunity to prevent disparities from happening. We have an opportunity to prevent disparities from getting any worse, or we have an opportunity to supersize the disparities that will change the lives of folks who grew up in Altadena and Pasadena and the region forever. Talk to us about the cautionary tale coming out of New Orleans from the Hurricane Katrina catastrophe.
Absolutely. So what we often see is communities of color are often disproportionately negatively impacted when there are natural disasters. Hurricane Katrina is one of those examples where we saw communities of color provided with fewer resources, slower processing of claims, and in many cases, even today, many of those communities have still not been able to rebuild 20 years later. we want to avoid that same disproportionate impact on communities of color, in particular the Black community, that has been devastated by the LA wildfires, by making sure that people have the information they need to get their claims processed, understand what their rights are, and are less likely to fall victim to some of the same tragedies that we saw with Hurricane Katrina.
The power's in our hands.
Absolutely.
The power's in our hands. And so I've got to ask you, Terrence, what's your call to action for your fellow attorneys who have a skill set, who have a skill set that may be in demand, whether you specialize in wildfires or insurance or what have you? What's your call to action to attorneys that may have, some extra time, or firms that may, have some commitments, some pro bono commitments to victims of the LA wildfires? What's your call to action to them?
Absolutely. So our community is facing a crisis. It's facing a crisis of resources and information. And for lawyers who want to find a way to help, we encourage them to attend on February the 19th. Learn the information. They can contact California Association of Black Lawyers. We will pair them up with folks who can give them vital information that they can share. But we all have an obligation to use the talent and training that we have to help preserve and protect our community. And I'm encouraging everybody to do that. I mean, I really love that this event is not just for consumers. It's not just for homeowners, property owners, but it's also for lawyers, right? Absolutely.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn together.
Absolutely.
To learn together. And so again, the California Association of Black Lawyers presents Know Your Rights. It's a panel to aid those affected by the LA wildfires with legal and insurance guidance. It is taking place on February 19th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Pacific. You can just Google California Association of Black Lawyers. They'll take you where you need to go. You sign up, you get the Zoom link, you hop on, and you will be better for it. I've asked Terrence to come back after the fact, and share with us some of the frequently asked questions that folks had, so we can amplify some of the guidance and solution to your questions.
Thank you. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for doing what you can from where you are with what you have. Our thanks to Terrence J. Evans, and our thanks to you. We've got more in store for you when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. And by the way, we see y'all in the More Perfect group chat on YouTube. And so keep engaging, and we'll keep dishing it out more when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. President Trump is boosting a poll showing Byron Donalds leading in a potential Florida governor race. Donalds, who is black and who backed Donald Trump over DeSantis, is reportedly planning to run. Black Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown is backing transgender